Today is August 3rd, 2023. We are interviewing Judith Sleed. My name is Esther Finder. Sleed is in East Hampton, New York. I am in Henderson, Nevada, in the United States, and the language will be English. Thank you for speaking with us today. What is your name, and can you please spell it?
Judith Sleed, Judith Sleed.
What was your name at birth?
Weinberger Judith Zuzanna. You want me
Could
to
you
spell that?
Please.
Weinberger Judith Zuzanna.
Where were you born?
I was born in Budapest, Hungary,
And when?
1932, April 30th.
And forgive me for asking, but how old are you?
I was told I'm 91. 91, yes.
Had your family lived in Hungary for many generations?
Yes, as far as I know, both my parents were born in Hungary.
What was your father's name and what did he do for a living?
His name was Weinberger Paul Peter, Weinberger Palpeter. And he never used the name Paul. He only went with Peter. And he had a leather goods store. He used to sell material for people who made shoes. Most people, in those days, most people had custom-made shoes.
What was your mother's name and what work did she do?
Her name was Goldstein Margit, Goldstein Margit. And she was a stay-at-home mom.
Did you have a large family or a small family?
Well, I had an older brother. He was 4 years older. His name was Tommy. And he was given the name Tamas, Tamas. He was born on November 28, 1928. So he was 4 years older, and that was our immediate family. And
did you have much extended family?
Did I have what?
Extended family. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins.
Oh, yes. Yes, my mother had a brother. His name was Andris, Andris, and he was a journalist. And he married a lady named Claudia, and they had one little girl, Veronica, who was born August the 2nd. My father he was one of 12 siblings. He was on the younger end, And he was born in Tisauila, Tisa, Tisaujlak, which was on the border of Romania. And most of the brothers settled in Budapest. And I had lots of cousins, aunts, and uncle. So my mother used to take me visit them every weekend. So, and I was like a little mascot. They had the older young men as children, and especially one of them was Judy. No, excuse me. Yeah, well, Judy and Bundy, they were two boys. Their father was Shani. And every time we went to visit, my mother would say, we're going to visit Judy Bundy. And I never heard the middle part, so I thought that his name was Judy Bundy. This one, because Judy was never home, only Bundy. And he adored me, and I adored him. He spent a lot of time with me, teaching me things. And I remember he taught me the words to Over the Rainbow in Hungarian. And he had an unfortunate end, and I cried about it a lot. I thought about it a lot. He had a girlfriend, Edie, and him, and also Edie and a lot of other young Jewish people. They got themselves false papers, so the Germans wouldn't know that they were Jewish. And from what I heard, the Nazis, they were questioning Edie, wanted to know where her boyfriend was, and she gave my cousin Bundy's address. So I always imagined him answering the door when he thought he was safe, and it was the Nazis, and they took him away and put him in there was this dreaded address. I don't remember exactly where it was, where they put people to punish them, and most of the people who say that they never came back alive. So that was the end of my cousin Judy Bundy. And that gave me a lot of grief. I remember thinking about him for many hours.
I'd like to go back to the years before the war, for right now. What religious traditions did your family observe when you were a little girl?
Well, as far as I knew, we had this apartment in this huge apartment building. It was I would say, a city project. And my father had a store on the other side of this project. And there was a time when he made an entrance. He took the wall down from the upper apartment so he could walk into the store. And of course, we kids thought it was a lot of fun. We used to run in and out. And also, when my father had to go to do some labor, my mother could just be at home and then go into the store and do the job. But then there came a time when they said that Jewish people cannot have such a choice place to have a store. So front of our building was a railroad track. It was not for a real, it was for a city purpose. They ran a line there in the city. So the other side of the track, that was the poor people lived. So they gave him a space over there. So he should have his store over there. So he continued to have his store over there. And other than that, I never knew what was happening the rest of the world. I only knew what was happening around me and my immediate surroundings, because anytime there was any talk about politics or unpleasant, my mother would cover my ears. So I just didn't know what was happening the rest of the world.
Was your family religiously observant? Did you have a favorite Jewish holiday?
Yeah, sometimes we did. I remember Passover, we ate matzah and going to the synagogue on Yom Kippur. I remember when they were saying the prayer for the dead, my mother used to usher me out. I was never able to hear Yizkor. So yes, we observed, not strictly, but we observed. I was familiar with. Also, when we went to school, there was once or twice a week there was a religious, lesson. There were just about 2 or 3 Jewish kids, and I remember the teacher's name was Anna. She was a very nice, sweet lady. And I remember the song, the Hanukkah song. I liked it. And she told us about the candles and everything. So I enjoy. And of course, I learned Hebrew. I learned how to read Hebrew. I still remember some. I mean, I can't read it like a Rebbitzin, but I know some Hebrew letters and I could read very slowly.
Could you please translate Rebbitzin? What does that mean?
Rebbitzin is the wife of a rabbi.
Thank you.
Yes.
What were relations like between Jews and Christians before the war? You already told us a little bit about what happened to your father, but what did you see?
Well, as I said, I lived in this city projects where they had many, many residents. And I remember this family who had 3 or 4 children. And the oldest one, I think his name was Joseph, he pretended to be a macho kid and he would cause a lot of kids some unpleasant happenings. But every time there was something unpleasant, he would call out to me and say, "Not you, not you." Like, I guess he liked me. I mean, he must have been about 4 or 5 years older than me. But I was afraid of other kids, especially my brother, because my brother was really afraid of him and a lot of other things. But other than that, I did not experience anything with other non-Jews. I had one girlfriend who was Jewish. Her name was Maudie, and she liked me. She was older, and she would like to boss me around. And there was another Jewish family who had a grocery store, and they had a little boy. His name was Erwin, and I used to play with him a lot. He was a year younger, and my father would have a photographer take a picture of his store so he could advertise it. And I remember I wanted Erwin to come be in the picture. So I got him standing next to me, but the photographer, no, you can't do that. So he moved him away. But somehow he got into the picture also, like he was looking on ruefully and he was picking his nose. So that's the picture went into the movie theaters. And I have a picture of that also. And somehow they survived because I remember her mother, his mother, writing me a letter. I just came across it the other day.
You mentioned that your mother was very careful to not let you hear bad things. Did you have any idea what was going on in other parts of Europe?
I had
1939, 1940, 1941.
At the time, I didn't know anything. Didn't know anything. The only time I got a hint that something was not right is when we had to move from our apartment to another location where we could have only one room from the whole family. It was on the other side of the Danube. And this house belonged to a lady named Regina. I heard that she was some sort of relation. So that was in March of 1944. So we moved in there, and there were a lot of other rooms in the house. So in each room, some other people lived. And there was this Juliet and Susan who lived there before. They were not Jewish. They used to be au pairs in Belgium, so they spoke French. So they spent some time with me. They taught me some French words and songs.
Had any refugees from Germany or Poland come through Budapest?
Not to my knowledge. And there was this gentleman who occupied one of the rooms. He was scholarly. He must have been about 60 or 70. I don't know. I remember him. He was like sort of heavy with bushy white hair. And one day, soldiers came and they knocked on his door, and he asked, what can I do for you? He said, I want you to come with us. And he said, okay, I'll go, but I want to put my shoes on. And they said, you won't need your shoes. So he went with them, and there was a little yard in front of the house with a garden. And they went toward the garden, and then I heard a gunshot. So, I mean, my mother couldn't close my eyes or ears about then, because I knew that this gentleman was shot.
When was this?
This was March, April, May, maybe in May. Like, we stayed there until October.
What year?
In this house, yellow, and we had to put a yellow star in front of the house, and we had to put yellow star in our outer clothing. And my mother did a very nice job sewing it on. And a couple of times the Nazis came, the Germans, and they hauled us off, and they told us to go someplace, and they were collecting outer garments in a pile. And I was alarmed because I thought I had seen them take a jacket that looked like my brother's. So I told my mother, Mama, I just think that's Tommy's jacket. And she said, don't worry about it. It's only a jacket. We'll get him another one. But as it turned out, it was not his jacket, and they let us go back and couldn't figure out why they hauled us together. I forgot to mention that before we were told to move, we experienced an air raid. And from the plane, we saw they were dropping bombs, and they were aiming at our building. But I found out that just a couple of miles from there, they were army barracks, so they were aiming for that. So we were lucky that they didn't drop the bomb at our building, but it tore up. Like in front of our house was the railroad tracks. It tore up the railroad tracks. And we started, when the sirens came, we went down the basement. They made it into a shelter.
I want to ask you about the moment you realized that the Nazis were there and were invading. Can you speak to that experience? When did you realize that the war has now come to you?
Well, I was still with my mother, so I felt safe. I figured as long as I'm with her, I'm okay. But then came October, and on October 20th, the Nazis came, and they said all men between the ages of 16 and 50 should go with them. And my brother was going to be 16 in November, and this was in October. And then my father was going to be 50 in the following June. But my mother was very generous and honest, and she figured they both fell into. So she told them to pack up their things and go with them. And then there came a notice that the following Monday, which was on the 23rd of October, all women between the ages of 16 and 50 should report to a station in the city. So, of course, my mother fell into that category, so she packed up and said goodbye to me the night before. So she left. The next morning, she didn't even wake me up. And actually, that was the last time I've seen any of them. And then,
Who took care of you?
well, there were other people in the house. I just stayed with them. I didn't even think that somebody should take care of me. I mean, I was just there. But it wasn't too long before they came and they said everybody has to move. This was in Buda. We have to go to Pest. So I don't even know what. I just gathered a few things, what I thought I needed. And I went with the whole group across one of the bridges to Pest. And they dropped us off at a building that was bombed out. It was full of holes. And the Nazis came around and they confiscated any valuables from everybody. And whatever I had, I didn't give. I was just staying there and they didn't bother me. And there were orders, kept shouting orders, this, that, and the other thing. And then after a while, it was just quiet. And it was getting dark. So I looked around and I had seen a big crack in the building where probably the bomb had made a big gash. So I walked over there and I looked around. Nobody was following me. So I just went out. And I found myself in the streets of Pest. So I started looking for relatives that I remembered where they lived. I knew the city because, as I said, I used to go visit people with my mother. And like across the street was the Opera House. And next to across the street from the Opera House was a ballet studio that I used to go to take ballet lessons. And not only that, but they were also my mother's cousins. So I went over there and I knocked on the door, but nobody answered. Then I must have spent the night on the street. And the next day I took a train, or I forget what it's called, Villamos, that's Hungarian. A trolley car, that's what it was, a trolley car. And I went to see this lady who I remember my mother gave her jewelry for safekeeping. So I thought I would see if I could get the jewelry back so I'll have some money. And but of course she said she doesn't have it in her home. And this lady with her son used to live in the same building as we did before we moved. So she said she was waiting for her son to come home from school. He was a very cute boy. His name was Karchi. And he took me to a trolley station. She gave me some money for car fare. And then I looked up.
I have one quick question. Were you still wearing your yellow star during all of this?
Well, that's a good question. I ripped it off. I was smart enough to rip it off. And I went to see my cousin Ava. And she was surprised to see me, and she asked me what happened, and I told her. So she said, well, I cannot keep you here. I'm in hiding, and I'm taking care of my mother. But tomorrow I'll take you to a place. She took me to a building that was protected by the Swiss government. And there was a big Swiss flag coming out of the window. So she took me there, where it was full of children who were homeless or alone or whatever. There must have been hundreds. And, well, there was a lot of stories happening there. I don't know if you're interested in hearing. I befriended this little adorable little girl who came in. Her name was Gabby. And she had big brown eyes, and she was dressed beautifully, brown hair. And I used to go and help her, whatever, or spend some time with her. But that's what we were doing. The older kids were sort of assisting younger kids. And then came a time when we had to move in the basement because the Allies were flying over and dropping bombs. And we were very lucky because neither the Nazis nor the bombs found us.
Can I ask you about the children? You said there were other children. Who cared for the kids?
Oh, they had people there who assigned to assist us, like a couple of adults. And they fed us, they gave us meals, and we had bunk beds. I remember we were like sardines on the bunk beds because there was not enough. So I learned to sleep without moving. But when the war ended, I was looking for Gubby, and when I first saw her, she was nothing like when she came in because she became very thin, unkept, and I had a dream that I'm gonna leave this place with her. I'll take care of her. All these grandiose dreams. But after a while, she wasn't around. Somebody must have come and taken her.
I have a couple questions that I wanted to ask you about what was going on in Budapest and what you may have been aware of. And if you weren't aware, that's fine. Please let me know you didn't know about it. Did you have any idea how Jews were being treated in other parts of Hungary outside of Budapest?
No. I had absolutely no knowledge of anything, even when Ava came to visit me several times. And one of the times she gave me this postcard from my father that he sent to one of our relatives who was not Jewish. So I still have that postcard.
Can you explain the postcard? Tell us about it, please.
Well, I didn't find out about it until years later when I was here in the United States and I took a writing course. And I didn't like it. Kept asking me if I knew anything, what happened, and I said no, I didn't know anything. And because, as I said, my mother would cover my ears, and whatever I did know, I didn't want to think about it. It was just too painful, so I didn't even watch anything. That if it was in the papers or on television, I just shut it off or I left. I didn't want to know anything. So in this class, they required us to read a book. And I got the book and I was sort of trembling because I really didn't want to read it because I knew it was going to be, I knew what the result was going to be. But I went ahead and with a heavy heart, I read it. And in this book, it said that the Nazis gave their victims a postcard to write home before they put them in the gas chamber. And that's how I found out. But at the time, I was just very happy to have a postcard from my father. In it, it said that he was with Tommy and he met up with my mother and that they should notify me that they are okay. But at the next sentence is only God is going to help us. So that's...
During the time you were in Budapest, what did you know about events happening at the Danube River? Were you aware of what was happening there?
I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I don't even know when I found out what was happening. It is... I found out later, but at the time I didn't know.
What did you find out later?
That they would make people line up in front of the river and they would shoot them and they would fall in. And I met one of the kids who just jumped in and he didn't die, but I think he was one of the kids that I ended up knowing on in this Zionist home on Daily Bob Street, because that's where Ava took me.
Um, I want to ask you if there's any other memory you have from the war period that you haven't mentioned yet that you would like to share with us. Anything else come to mind before we move on to liberation?
Well, as I said, when the war ended, Ava came again, and she put me in this Zionist home where they taught us, they wanted our groups to go to Israel, to Palestine. And I remember I didn't want to go because I figured if my family comes back, they won't find me. So I just stayed as long as I could. And then finally, Ava convinced me that don't worry, if they do come, I will tell them where you are. You could go with them to Palestine. And offhand, I don't remember much, but when I first came to the States, people wanted to know how I survived. And I kept telling them bits and pieces, and they said, why don't you write it down? Write it down. People, we want to know. And through the years, I was writing, and I just I couldn't put it together. It was just too painful to recall everything. So after a while, I decided I'm going to write a play about it.
You're jumping ahead of me just a little bit. How long did you stay in Budapest after the war?
How long? I have it written down, the exact dates. That's why I wanted that piece of paper here.
Approximately.
1944, about 3 years. It took me 3 years to get here.
Why did you want to come to the United States?
Okay, because I fell in love with George Judy. He was an older kid in our group, and he said he's not going to Israel. He's going to South America. He has an uncle who is going to send for him. And then I said, well, I have an uncle in the United States who's going to send for me. So if you're not going to Israel, you're going to South America, I'm going to North America, Brazil, I'm going to USA. I thought we'd be neighbors. And and I could, we could get together. And that's the truth. And that's how I came here.
Please tell us who helped you get here.
Well, my father's sister, Aunt Rose, she was one of the older of the 12. She and Esther was one of the younger, and Adolf. The three of them came to the States before the war. So it was Aunt Rose and her husband, Julius. and they had two children, Claire and Robert, and they purchased the tickets, the affidavit, and whatever they needed to do. And I had to wait. I waited in Italy, in Rome, for a whole year before my quota came up. They had a place where they made into a refugee camp. It was called Cinecittà. So I was in a movie studio, and that's where I was.
When did you come to America?
Well, as I said, I have it written down exactly.
How old were you?
Oh, I was 15. 15, I remember I spending my sweet 16 here. Because Aunt Esther had a daughter, Madeline, who was the same age as me. Excuse me, she was 4 months older. Said she would call me my kid sister. Oh, my kid cousin is coming. And she was telling all her friends. And she was a very cute young girl. And she loved going out places and loved to dance and go here and there. And she told everybody that my father had a shoe factory. Everything is much bigger. And so I used to pal around with her, but I didn't speak a word of English. So they put me in night school. It was called English for the Foreign Born. And also they put me in regular school instead of sitting home. So I would sit in the classroom and I was sitting there writing Hungarian letters to my friends back who remained with the Zionist group.
I wanted to ask you about your expectations of America and your first impressions when you got here.
The first thing that when I got off the boat, I couldn't believe all the cars, because I haven't seen any cars in Budapest or any other place. So that was my first impression. And my uncle used to make me breakfast, and he would cut up a grapefruit. And that I thought it was funny how it sprinkled all over when you tried to eat it. And I said, this is the way America is. They eat grapefruit. I didn't like it, but that impressed me. And also, when I was, it took 8 days to cross the Atlantic, and one of my fellow travelers had a book, Gone with the Wind, in Hungarian. So we were reading it. And then when the ship landed, we were not finished, and I begged him to give me the book, and I will give it back to him. He went to California, Los Angeles. And as it happened, he did give it to me. And then I mailed it to him to Los Angeles. And then when I heard that the movie is playing someplace, because I lived in the Lower East Side, and the movie was playing in like 89th Street, and I was begging my aunt and uncle to please let me go. I have to see this movie. So they did let me go, and I was just so happy to see it because I knew the whole story, and then to see it on film, I was very happy to see that. So that's one of my earliest recollections in America.
How were you treated by the Americans when you first came here? Were they welcoming?
Well, I only was with my aunt and uncle and cousins. I didn't go out. One time, my cousin Bob took me to lunch, and then he met somebody he knew, and he said, "How do you like my date?" Pointing to me. I said, "This is my little cousin, just came from Europe." But I didn't. The only other people I knew was my cousin Claire used to give piano lessons, so her students would come to the house. And I remember this one young lady called Marilyn. She was a very good student, and she was very nice to me. But other than that, and she had also, besides teaching piano, she had a all-girl band. She would play in nightclubs with two other. One had a saxophone, and the other one a drummer. And she was also friends with them, and she would have them over the house, and they were very nice to me. But other than that, I don't recall interacting with anybody else.
Were you able to get some education in the United States?
Well, after I learned English, when I was an adult, I took that course. I forget what you call it. That shows that you finished your high school. There's a diploma you get. I'm sure you know the name of it. A lot of people get that when you don't have time to really go to school, so you take that course. And I passed it with flying colors, with a B average.
Did anybody ask you about your experiences in Europe?
My experience with what?
During the war, did anybody ask you about what happened to you during the war and how you survived?
Yeah, they kept asking me constantly. And that's why I written that play, because I couldn't make a book out of it. I didn't know how to what structure to use without feeling any pain. And because in the play I called it Daily Bob, because that's where Ava put me, in the Zionist home that was on the street, Daily Bob Street. And I made that very gentle, because the kids there, we were singing songs all the time. And we had a very nice lady who was used to cook for us, and she was very nice. And I put all that in the play, and very gently I allowed some of the children tell their stories, what happened to them. Especially that's when one of the kids talked about the Danube. So I had a play reading here in the Hamptons several years ago, and people were interested. I mean, they liked it. But it wasn't staged. It was just a play reading.
What's the name of your play?
Daily Bob.
That's the full title?
Yes.
I want to ask you about a couple historical events to see your reaction. Did you follow the Nuremberg trials?
No, I did not. I didn't even watch the movie.
What do you remember about the birth of the State of Israel?
About what?
The birth of the State of Israel.
Well, I remember Golda Meir and Chaim Weissman. And that's about. I didn't know any details. I just heard about it. And
what work did you do? I'm sorry.
And I was in, all the kids that I was with in the Daily Bob, they went to Israel, and I was in touch, especially my friend Miriam. And we were constantly corresponding. And I went to visit her once, and she came to visit me twice. And once she came by herself, the second time she came with her husband. And she had 2 children. Unfortunately, her little girl, when she got married, she and another couple, they went on their honeymoon to Europe. They went into a car accident and got killed. So that was for many, many years, my friend Miriam was mourning her. And she made a shrine for her in the cemetery. When I went to visit, she took me there.
Can you tell me about the work that you did over the years in the United States? What work did you do?
Well, at first, I made decorations, candy decorations for stores who sold candy, not candy, but cakes. It was funny what I had to do. Well, you filled up this tube with this substance, and you made a form, and then you put it in the oven, and it came out. Then they sold that to bakeries. So I remember I was making, that was like $27 a week. And then after that, a cousin asked me to go live with her and babysit for her so she could go back to work. And I said, well, it sounds good, except you don't have a piano, so I'm not coming. So she went out and she got a baby grand. So I went to live with her, and she was very good to me, cousin Miriam. I'm still, her daughter Marcia is in California. I'm still in touch with her, and she she said, I would like you to go to school and learn the comptameter. A comptameter, that was like a machine. It was famous for the girls who operated with the pencil in their hand. We had to hold the pencil right between our thumb while we were punching in numbers. That was before the computer, the comptameter. So when I learned that, I went to work. I could go to work for people who required numbers, like accountants and whatnot. And so that's how I became, I could work as a comptometer operator for different companies. And in the school, when they were collecting the papers, I saw a Hungarian name, so I approached her. Her name was Vera Farkas. And she said, well, I'm too old for you, but I have a younger sister, Yutzi. So she introduced me to her, and then she was going with this fellow named Jules, and she's come to a party with me, and she got me a blind date with Frankie. And there comes, while we were there, in comes this very adorable, cute young man dressed in uniform by the name of Joel. Well, I took one look at him, and that's all I needed. And I ended up marrying him. And that's how I didn't go with cousin Miriam, because eventually she moved from Brooklyn. First, she went to South Carolina, and from there to California. So that's why I didn't go with her, because I already met Joel and I didn't want to leave him.
So you got married and you had a family?
Yes, I had. You met my son before. I had 3 children: Jody, Jill, and Jeff. Unfortunately, my Jill passed away about 6 years ago. She had cancer. She was a wonderful young woman. And Jody got married, and she has 2 sons. And one son just had 2 children. As a matter of fact, the little boy's birthday is today. And I don't think I wished him. He's about 2 years old. His name is Ryder, and the little girl is 4, going to school next year. So I hear she's very excited. And the other boy didn't get married. And Jeff got married, and his marriage fell apart. And he has 2 children. He married a girl in Texas. So he moved to Texas and was there for until the marriage ended, and I went there to rescue him. but a boy and a girl. And his son got married. And that's about the family.
What did you tell them about your childhood and your wartime experiences?
My children, I didn't tell them anything. I didn't want to hear about it, talk about it, look at anything. And I think they found out some things about from their father. And Jeff is okay with it, but Jody, she was very hurt by it, and she was angry with me for many years. As a matter of fact, just last year it was that this wonderful filmmaker, Christian Arbasu, made a documentary about my life. And she was surprised that Jody didn't know anything. I mean, all the information that came up, Jody was just, she said, Mom, did you make this up? She didn't know anything. And she said, actually, when she first read it, because there was a story written up about me in the Hidden Child publication. She said she teared up because she was just so surprised. Well, I just thought I would save them some heartache. That's why I didn't say anything, because it was very painful for me. I thought I was doing good, but apparently not.
Can you tell us, please, the name of the film?
I Am Judith, Judit. It won 2 awards so far. One in Toronto, one in Chicago. It's the best documentary of the year.
And when was this film made?
We just finished filming just a few months ago. It's very recent. People could see the trailer, but not the whole film.
Have you ever returned to Budapest since coming to the United States?
Yes, my daughter Jody took me back. She paid for it. And I went to see the house where I used to live. It was very interesting because everything looked so small. When I was a kid, it was big. And now everything was so small. And I knocked on the door, and the people were there, and I went in, and I said, I used to live here. And it was so interesting because they were watching television. And the railroad track was no longer there. There were cars on the street. And I also went to visit the Dohain Temple. That's a big Jewish synagogue. And I looked around, and there were a lot of different things out there. There was like a tree. They made a tree with an artificial tree with leaves and with names on it. And I asked the girl who was doing the tour, I said, how come that this actress, Tolnai Clary, her name is over there. She said she didn't even notice it, but she helped a lot of Jewish people.
How were you received when you went back?
Well, by whom? There was no one there. There was no one that I knew.
By the people you met, were they welcoming to have a Jew return?
I didn't. No, there was just one person who I was with my cousin Ava. Somehow she met this woman. So it was, as I said, my daughter Jody took me there. So when I was with this woman talking to her, it was very difficult because Jody didn't speak Hungarian and this lady didn't speak English. So I had to like sort of communicate with them. So it was difficult. But I'm glad I went. As I said, it was strange that there was no one that I knew.
Did you ever experience any anti-Semitism in Budapest after the war, either immediately after the war or when you went back?
No, I did not. As a matter of fact,
I'm sorry.
I went back to school trying to continue my education, and the teacher was very kind to me, knowing what happened and knowing that I was Jewish.
Have you ever experienced or witnessed any anti-Semitism in the United States?
I can't say that I did. No. No.
How do you react when you see scenes with refugees fleeing Ukraine? How does that feel
hurts. It hurts me because I remember what I went through, and I said that's happening to other. I'm always feel sorry for people who are oppressed.
What else would you like to mention before we conclude? Is there anything we haven't spoken about that you want to share with us today?
Can I take a rest?
We can certainly take a break. We can take a break for a few minutes, yes.
Okay, shutting down.
Okay, we're back. You want to take a break for a minute. I'm at my last question now. And my last question is, what message do you have for future viewers of this interview? And I know there's something you wanted to share with us.
Yes, I gave it a lot of thought, what I could tell people. So if you don't, I had written it down, and I hope you don't mind if I look at my notes, because my memory is very bad. Okay. Cherish your family, because there's nothing like to fall back on your family, that you have a family. So don't do anything to hurt anybody's feelings. I have to tell you that when I first came to the States, I went to therapy, and I told the teacher, what I want to do is to rebuild everything that I have lost. And she looked at me and she said, that's a tremendous task. I don't know if he could ever achieve it. But there's nothing like your own family, because anytime you are in any sort of difficulty, you have your family to fall back upon, because there's no one who would care for you as much as your own family, like your mother, your father, your sister, or brother. And a lot of times we get angry with someone, like when I first came to America, my uncle Adolf passed away. We went to the funeral, and there was Aunt Louisa and Uncle Bela, and there was me with my cousin Claire. They haven't talked to each other for like 20 years. The family, I mean, they were cousins. They didn't even know why they were angry at each other. So I thought it was very strange. That's why my advice is to hold on fast, because once they were gone, you can't go back, and then you're going to live with that pain. If only I did this, if only. That's why I'm just saying, cherish your family. And that's, I don't know what else to say. It's like, sometimes we just get so angry for no reason at all. I mean, it's really very meaningless. Nothing compared to what your own family could give you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking with us today.
Thank you for letting me share, because very few people ask me my opinion. They don't know me as a star. Also, I didn't say that, we talked about the documentary, but also I had written a book, a children's book. It's called The Fight of the Crayons. And that's also a very good, it's not only entertaining, it's a teaching. And also, you could have fun coloring it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you tell us about this picture and who these people are?
Certainly, that's my cousin Ava with her husband Istvan Tivadar, Tivadar. I believe this was taken when she got married. Don't ask me what year it was.
Where was it taken?
In Budapest.
Thank you. Tell us about this picture, please.
That's Judy. That's Judy. That's me with my two little girls, Jody and Jill. Jody must have been about 6, and Jill was like 4. In Baldwin, New York, Long Island.
What year?
Well,
and can you?
Jody was born in 1957, and Jill was born in 1959. So, have to figure it out.
And can you please give your last name also?
Sleed, Sleed. Oh, Jody, Jodie. Sleed, Sleed. and Jill, JILLSLEED.
Thank you. And this picture, please.
In this picture, that's Judith Weinberger and Tommy Weinberger. I must have been about 12, and he must have been around 15.
So what year was that?
Well, I don't have enough fingers to count. It must have been, let's see, 1940, around there.
The 1940s. And where was it taken?
In Budapest.
And what country?
Oh, Hungary. Budapest,
Thank
Hungary.
You. Thank you. And who are these people?
These lovely people are my mother's parents. That's, her name is Paula Steiner. Shall I spell it? Paula Steiner, ST Steiner, IEER. And his name is Goldstein, GOLDEIN. And the first name, it's something like Matthew, but it's a fancy name with an M. And they look awfully young. And they must have been taken before I was born, so I don't know when it was taken.
And where do you think it was taken?
Well, it must have been taken in Budapest, Hungary.
Thank you.
He had a grocery store in Buda, and she was one of 6 children. And we were very close to her because she came to live with us anytime. When my father was away, and my mother had to go to the store, so she would take care of my brother and I in those times. But they had a lovely home in Obuda. I used to enjoy many lavish dinners in her living, not the dining room. I remember making that dough, krepla, when you pull it out, you put the dough in there, and we would help her pull it out to very thin. And what's the name of that pastry? You don't know. It's a Hungarian pastry. It's delicious.
Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
That adorable little boy is my brother, Tommy. And I think that was taken before I was born. It looks like he was 3 years old. So if he was born in 1928, then this must have been in 1931. In my opinion, in Budapest, Hungary.
And his full name, please?
Tamás. Tamas.
Last name?
Weinberger.
Thank you.
WEINBERGER.
Thank you. Can you tell us about this, please?
I have this picture duplicated and enlarged and sending it to my grandchildren, and they say, "Oh, I guess those are my relatives." I said, "Yes, they are." Up front, I am sitting in my father's lap. I am about 6, 7 years old. Um, they used to call me Juji. My middle name, it was such a big deal because my mother wanted to call me Susan Ava, and my grandmother wanted to call me Juji. You did. Well, anyway, my middle name became Zuzana, so everybody called me Zuzi. And that's little Zuzi sitting in the father's lap. And behind me is my brother Tommy. He was posing with a towel in front of him.
Last name?
Weinberger.
Okay.
And Judy Bundy is there. And Elamir Ilushka, Peter, and Lolly. A lot of people there, and they are all gone.
Can you give us their last names also?
I'm the only one who survived. No, actually, that's not true, because Ilush, Aunt Ilush with her 2 boys survived. And 2 little ones up front sitting in the sand, that's her 2 boys. And Aunt Ilush she's the lady with the round face. And this was at some place where I must have been artificial sand, because it must have been like a Gellert. That was the name of the place where we went. Gellert, where they had places where you go swimming and other activities. It's a vacation spot.
Can you tell us the last names of the people too? You've only given us first names for some of them. And also
Weinberger.
When you think it was taken.
Ilushneni. I remember her husband's name was Elamir, but isn't that funny? I can't remember the last name.
Whatever you can remember. If you don't remember, that's fine.
They went to Israel also. No, I can't remember. I haven't thought of it lately. I can't remember the last name.
That's okay. And approximately what year do you think this was taken? What year?
Oh, that must have been 1940.
Thank you.
Okay,
what are we looking at now?
That beautiful little girl is Zuzi Weinberger, otherwise known as Judy Sleed. And below that is Laurent. His name was Laurent Weinberger, but he wanted to sound Hungarian, so he changed it to Laurent. And he came to the US with his wife and mother-in-law and 2 daughters. And the 2 daughters are still around in California. And that lovely lady is my beloved piano teacher, Mrs. Vazzi, Vazzy. She's the one who taught me to play the piano. And we used to correspond after I came to the United States. And she adored me.
When were the pictures taken?
She gave it to me. I didn't ask her how old were you or anything. And the Laurent, I don't even know how I got that picture. And the baby picture, I must have been about 2 years old, I think. What year? 1934.
Thank you.
That beautifully married couple is my father and mother, Peter Weinberger and Margit Goldstein, on their wedding day. You want me to spell Goldstein? No, or Weinberger?
It's okay. When do you think this was taken and where?
This must have been in Budapest, Hungary, 1926. It's a good guess.
Thank you.
I am very sorry to include this picture. This is my good friend Dorothy and her husband Stanley Greenspan. This is their wedding picture, and we were friends before we got married. And God bless them. I'm not in touch with them anymore. Maybe they sent me this picture after I gave them a gift. A thank you with a picture.
Do you know when or where it was taken?
I forgot where they got married. In New York State, but I can't remember where.
And when?
Her maiden name was Falk, F-A-L-K. Dorothy, F-A-L-K.
Thank you.
This is Aunt Rose and Uncle Julius. These are the two lovely people who brought me out to the United States. It cost them money. They didn't have much, but they did it. She is my father's sister, one of the older sisters, and they are holding Gil, their first grandchild. Bless you. Their daughter, Claire, gave birth to Gil. And
last name?
Fleischmann, Fleischmann.
And when and where?
And this must have been in their summer vacation place in I know where it is, Pine Hill, New York, Pine Hill. It's a small town, but
any idea when it was taken?
When it was? Well, let me see. I came here for maybe 52, around
Thank
there.
You.
And he was a lovely man, Uncle Julius. He passed away much before Aunt Rose. He was a waiter, and we used to laugh at him because at home he used to take the plate away before you finished your dinner.
Thank you.
This also is my brother Tommy. We saw another picture of him in this outfit. So,
Last name
Weinberger.
and when and where was the photo taken?
This was in Budapest, Hungary. It must have been 28, 1930, 31.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the store, my father's store. On the right side, you could see my mother, the father, and two of us, Tommy and I, and this cousin Mickey, who used to help out. And this is that little boy, Erwin, who's on this. I wanted him to be in the picture, but they couldn't, so they put him on the aside so you could see him over there with picking his nose. And then he had to move. This is the building we lived in, like the other side of the store was our apartment. And he had to move to the other side of the track where the poor people lived. And this is the store he had to move to from here to here. And that's only him and the.
Can we get the first and last names of everybody in the picture, please?
Well, my mother and father, that Weinberger, Mr. and Mrs. Weinberger, and the two children, that's my brother Tommy and I, Tommy and Juji, and the gentleman who's next to my father is Uncle Mickey Weinberger. And the little boy is Erwin Weiss, Weiss. And his parents had a vegetable store in this building in the corner.
And any idea what year it was taken?
Okay, I must have been about 6. So 32 and 6 is how much? 38, 40, 1940.
It's okay, it's not a math test. And where was it taken?
Well, it's Ülői út in Budapest.
Thank you.
Ülői, that's the name of the street, Ülői út 120-22. That's the address.
What is this
Si,
that we're looking
signora.
at now?
I'm sorry.
What is this that we're looking at now?
This is a postcard, the original postcard my father had written with his handwriting. He sent this postcard to, we had a relative who was not Jewish, so he remembered her address. So that's how we got it. He says that en route we met up. I am with Tommy and I met up with Muncie. That's his wife, my mother. Tell Zuzi, that's me, that we are okay and only God is going to help us.
And your family name, please?
Weinberger.
And Can you put a date to this postcard, an approximate date? What year?
1944, October, November, December. I don't know if the postmark is visible.
Thank you. And what now are we looking at? Is this the flip side?
This is the other side of the postcard.
And this was the postcard your father sent?
Yes, this is the one I talked about earlier, that I found out that the next trip was the gas chamber.
And can you please give us your father's name again?
Peter Weinberger. Let me see if the date is visible.
No. Oh.
Pausing.
And what year do you think this was?
This was in 1944, must have been around November or December.
Thank you. And what year do you think this postcard was sent?
1944. Like November or December.
Okay. Thank you.
This is in East Hampton, New York, in front of Guildhall, where a play reading took place, the play that I had written. Georgia Day. It says my name is there, Judy Sleed. It's tonight at 7:30. It was a play I have written called Georgie Day. So I asked Josh Gladstone to take a picture of this. So I have something to remember.
Is the date on there?
Tonight at 7:30.
So when was this?
I don't even know.
Approximately.
January 14th. Yeah, it does say Georgia Day. What year was maybe 10 years ago? What was 10 years ago?
2013?
Huh?
2013?
2013. Okay.
Thank you. What are we looking at now?
Looking at the book called The Fight of the Crayons by yours truly, Judy Sleed. Judysleed. And this is a book I have written. I'm still trying to find a publisher who would pay me for it. It's a wonderful story. It's fun to read, and it's also a teaching and also a coloring book. And this month, there's going to be an event here in East Hampton. The library holds Authors' Night. It's a function with a lot of authors selling their own books. They do this every year. And this year, they included me, so I could be sitting there with a lot of other famous authors trying to sell this, hopefully making some money.
When did you write this book?
I had written this book when my children were small, because every time I took them to the library, they only picked up books that had colors. So that must have been, let's say, 63, maybe 1970. I had written, and so that's what gave me the idea. And then it's self published. I had to pay for it to have it published. I'm still waiting for somebody to pay me for it.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today. And this now concludes the interview.
Well, thank you also. And is Steven Spielberg going to look at this?
There are 55,000 testimonies. I don't think he's going to see them all.